So you want to be a life coach, but you don't know where to get started. In this video, I'm going to give you exactly the 5 steps that you need to know in the order that you need to know them so you can get started in your career as a life coach. Ready? The first thing that we need to identify is the beliefs that you are carrying right now with you. You see, we all are functioning beliefs that we have created until now in our lives. Until this moment, there is a set of past events that have happened in your life that have got you to believe certain things. And those certain things, if not challenged, if those beliefs, if not challenged, will continue to create the reality that you already have. So, you know how you may feel like, hey, I'm not progressing, I'm not moving, I want to be a life coach, but I haven't really done anything for it. You're not able to make decisions. It's because you're repeating the cycle of your past, because the belief systems that you created because of events that might have happened in your life. So to be able to change your life, to be able to become a life coach, you must be first willing to address, what are these beliefs? What are these things that you have got yourself to believe because of events that might have happened in your life that may or may not be true? They may be your truth, but they are not the truth. The key is our truth is the only thing that matters when we are taking actions, when we are making decisions. And so let's try to identify what might be some of the beliefs that have been present to you right now that might have held you back and will continue to hold you back if you don't address them. One of the most common beliefs that I've heard coaches that are finding it hard to make progress, and they tend to have it, is they actually believe coaching is hard. Coaching is something that is incredibly difficult. And you would be right for people who don't have frameworks. Most people who find coaching incredibly difficult to pursue or to be able to do with someone, to be able to drive results, are individuals that don't have either good frameworks or haven't practiced the frameworks that they may have learned in some certification program or a program overall. It's not that coaching is hard. Coaching is actually a really simple process if you understand the framework of coaching and if you follow the framework of being able to drive results for someone. So the challenge is not coaching. The challenge is the lack of understanding of the frameworks that you need to be able to effectively coach. So the question really to ask yourself, is coaching hard? That might be something that you may have recognized as you were trying to coach someone and you didn't get a result with them and you felt maybe this is a really difficult endeavor. It's not. It's just the story that you told yourself was not based in the truth of how coaching is pursued, which is to first understand, develop, and learn frameworks, practice them, and then execute with people outside. Once you do that, you would recognize that coaching actually is not hard. It's a fairly simple process that can be executed with great efficiency using the frameworks that one may learn. The second most common belief that people tend to have is there are coaches everywhere. How many of us have had that recognition at some point where you feel like there's so many coaches? Every time I go on Instagram, every time I go on LinkedIn, every time I go on any platform, I feel like there's the coaches that are in my category. And there's so many of them. They're of all ages, of all styles. What is happening? Why is the world full of coaches? If the world was full of coaches, we'd be a much happier place. It's just not true. Here is what's been happening for you, and this seems to be the trend right now. It's very likely that you have one of these two things that are true for you. A, you go to personal growth events. Okay? Or personal growth events, right? Or you are following a lot of teachers that you love. Right? These are teachers, these are educators, these are coaches that you love because they've impacted your life. Now, let's imagine you go to a personal growth event. And let's imagine what are the kind of people that show up for personal growth events. Well, these are people who are interested in personal growth. They want to change. They want to make a difference. They want to make a difference in their lives and they want to make a difference in somebody else's life. Well, if that was true, would you not think that people who are coaches would be a subset of people who are interested in personal growth? Obviously, right? So if you go to an event which has 1,000 people, it's a very big likelihood that at least 20% of these people who are going to this event are coaches, which means 200 out of 1,000 are going to be coaches. So every fourth or fifth person that you meet is very likely to be a coach. Do you think if you go to an environment, every fourth or fifth person that you meet or the person sitting next to you is likely to be a coach, would you start to believe there are so many coaches in the world? You would, because you would go, every fourth person I meet is a coach. Yes, because you are in a contained environment where coaches are most attracted to. Now, let's imagine this personal growth event, say something like a Mindvalley event, somebody like me is speaking who attracts a lot of coaches and trains a lot of coaches. This percentage of coaches actually goes up. 30 to 40% of attendees suddenly become coaches So you have 300 to 400 people now out of 1,000 that are coaches. So every other person you meet is likely to be a coach. So you're likely to think there are lots of coaches in the world. There are not lots of coaches in the world. The environment that you just submerge yourself into is full of coaches because they're all going to learn for themselves and sometimes be able to find clients that might be interested in the result that they're driving for them. So that's why you meet a lot of coaches at live events. Now, another situation might be where you follow teachers on online media like Instagram or Facebook or whatever it might be. Now, here's how algorithms work of all social media, including YouTube, is all they care for is that you spend more time on that platform. So be it Instagram, be it YouTube, be it Facebook, be it any other platform, LinkedIn, they all want you to spend more time on their platforms. If you follow a teacher that, say, talks about how they help you become more confident, what will happen is Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, all these channels are going to say, this person is interested in confidence. Let's show them everyone that talks about confidence. Guess who talks about confidence? Coaches, right? Or other teachers like the teacher that you follow. So what happens is social media, because you're engaging in a particular kind of content, creates a bubble around you where all you see is coaches, trainers, educators in the field that you are interested in, suddenly making you feel like there are too many coaches in the world. Now, if you top it up that you want to be a coach, let's say you're watching this video like, I want to be a life coach. So you start following individuals like myself, start following Mindvalley coach or Mindvalley because you want to become a certified life coach with us. What's going to happen is you will start seeing all the different coaches that we may have certified or are using our methodologies out in the world, and you start seeing their content because social media thinks, the platforms think you're interested in coach education. And so it'll show you as many coaches as it possibly can, making you believe there's too many coaches in the world. If I had to really take a number of certified coaches that have registered is 150,000 in the world. That's the total number of coaches. Let's assume the actual number that is not certified and not registered as coaches is 3 times this. So that puts us at about 450,000 coaches in the world right now. Do you know how many people are in the world? Billions, right? So even if you had 450,000 people that were coaches, you have a lot more people that are in the world. Just in America, there are 350 million people. 350 million people at 450,000 coaches, we barely can serve America. So if you really consider the whole world, you're barely scratching the surface. It's just your environment, your reality that is telling you that there are too many coaches in the world. There are not too many coaches in the world. There are too few coaches in the world, if at all. The third common belief that a person has, or third common belief a person picks in coaching is, I am not smart enough. I'm not smart enough to do this. I'm not smart enough for me to be able to help somebody else. I am not smart enough to be able to navigate the real challenges of life. I'm not smart enough for this. I'm not smart enough for that. And that often becomes a repeating self-propagating theory. Now, most of the people that have established that they're not smart enough has happened because of one of these reasons. Somebody in their family told them they were not smart enough. Somebody who's a teacher might have told them they're not smart enough. There might be that their learning style was so different that their teacher couldn't capture it, especially at the time. And if you're in your 30s and 40s right now or 50s right now, you may have noticed that education has changed dramatically. Now we are more inclusive. We try to understand what's happening for the person. But if you're my age and you were born in India and you were dyslexic, people will tell you that you're not smart enough. But that's not true. You're just dyslexic. Your learning style is different. It doesn't have anything correlation to your smartness. But what happens is because we were told as a kid that we are not smart enough, we start to carry that belief and we start to believe that that's exactly why we will not be able to be an effective coach or that we won't be a good coach. And that not necessarily is helping you right now. Because if you believe you're not smart enough, guess what? Even if you were, you will find ways to feel like you're not smart enough, and hence you won't be executing the things that you want to execute. So what can we do about it? So the first thing that you need to notice, or you can notice for yourself, is when was the first time or the time that you remember that you were told you're not smart enough. And find that time and kind of, don't revisit it, you don't have to, but find that time in your heart and go, okay, what was it when the first time I recall somebody told me I'm not smart enough? Say you were 5 years old, 10 years old, that you were told you're not smart enough. Now, a 10-year-old's brain is only about 25% developed. So if you were 10 years old, you are operating at about 25% of your actual brain capacity that it will be in time. Now, let's say you are 40 now, right? So this is 10 years, this is 40 years old, right? Your brain is developed 100% for the last 15 or so years, right? So what you're doing right now to yourself is you're saying the truth that this 25% brain believed to be true. Because we may remember somebody said you're not smart enough, but do you remember the context? Do we remember the actual word-by-word conversation? Or do we just remember the meaning that we made out of the entire conversation? So if somebody told you you are not smart enough, without context, you made a meaning that it is true. And because you made this meaning, now you think it is true almost 30 years later. While when you actually heard it, you could only process about 25% of the information that was being given to you. Now you process 100% of the information, right? So you see that right now, your 40-year-old self is living the belief of a 10-year-old child. And would that in any way feel like, as you kind of build this perception, as you start to go, is this really how I want to live my life? Do you see how living a 10-year-old's life is not really very productive for the 40-year-old self? There's a point in our life where we have to decide that we have to stop living the traumas of our childhood. There's a point in our life where we have to start asking ourselves, does this help me? If the answer is no, you can simply switch your reality from this 10-year-old self to this 40-year-old self and start to reinstill new beliefs. I invite you to ask yourself for evidence of why you are so smart. And you will find enough evidence for you to justify and understand that you actually an incredibly smart person. The third common belief that I hear that people say often in my groups, because we tend to have a lot of students in their 50s and 60s and 70s even, going on to 70s, is they say, I'm too old. I'm too old for this, Ajit. I'm too old for this. I don't think I can do it. I don't understand all your new stuff and all of that stuff. I don't understand this new reality that you guys are in. I don't understand social media, and so on and so forth. And it's always interesting to me because how I see coaching is the more mature you get, the more life experience you get, the better you get as a coach, because you have actually seen most of the seasons of life, if not all of the seasons of life. See, if somebody is 70, they've probably seen a couple of recessions. They've probably seen some market downturn. They've probably lost all their money and made it all back. They are very likely to have either had multiple jobs or had multiple careers. They probably had kids and saw them grow up and leave the house. And they've gone through the emotional turmoil that a person goes through in a lifetime. I know that for sure because my parents are in 70s and my aunts and uncles are in 70s. And it is fascinating to hear their stories. And they're not coaches necessarily, just without that. They have so much wisdom to give me today. And so, are you really too old or are you really too experienced? And because you're so experienced, maybe all you need is a framework. And beyond that, you're actually incredibly capable of creating whatever reality, whatever success that you want to create in your life. So identify the success and ask yourself, are you too old or are you too mature, too experienced? Because if you ask yourself, am I too experienced? It's actually an empowering thought. It's like I have all the experience that I need to be able to coach anyone versus, oh, I'm too old and I can't do this, which is a disempowering thought. So choose an empowering thought so hopefully you can switch your reality and move into something that actually is helpful to you versus something that is disempowering you and not letting you move further in your life. Another common question that I get is, I'm too young. I'm too young to coach. And so my response to that is there a reason why we must believe that age has anything to do with coaching? Now, I'll tell you why people think age has anything to do with coaching is because they think coaching is mentorship. Coaching is not mentorship. Coaching is not about knowing all the answers. Coaching is actually more about knowing how to question what is the current reality of the person and help them navigate their own personal truth while providing maybe some education sometimes. And that's exactly what a young person or an old person can do. Age is not a factor that determines somebody's curiosity. You can be incredibly curious, you can be incredibly mature, and you can be incredibly interested in the person that you're talking to, that you help them discover themselves better and move through the next path and move through into the next direction for them to be able to create the success that they want to create for themselves. Age is not important when it comes to coaching. System is. So if you have an effective framework of asking questions, directing questions, being able to navigate with somebody, you have the tools for it, then you will be able to coach anyone irrespective of the age or gender that you have. Which brings me to the next question, which is, I'm struggling in this area. How can I coach someone else? Well, maybe that's exactly why you can coach someone else. It's because if you're struggling in a particular area in your life, it is a possibility that you actually understand that area, the pain of that area, way more than anybody else does. And because of that, you might be able to work with the person that is actually trying to solve it for their own life, and hence be able to actually be a really effective coach to them. Let me give it with an example. You see, often this question is asked in context of business or money. It's like, oh, I'm not making that much money. How can I help somebody else with money? Or, oh, I'm not building up, my business is not that successful. How can I coach somebody else in business? Well, here is the understanding that you must have, or at least consider. And that is, when somebody becomes wealthy or somebody's business becomes successful, it's often about being at the right time, at the right place, doing the right thing with the right skills. It's not necessarily that they are smarter than you. They are not necessarily more profound than you or have a better understanding of it than you. A lot of people who have extreme anxiety channel it to be able to become really wealthy. Is that a good relationship with money? Probably not. Maybe you have a different relationship with money, which might mean that you don't have abundance of it because you're not at the right place at the right time with the right skill, but you actually were able to establish a great set of relationship with money, so you actually enjoyed your money. And this person that wants to coach with you actually wants to enjoy their money and not just hoard it and stay anxious about it at all times. Or around business, is this person might just work like a dog and they're working 10, 12, 13 hours and they're 45 years old or 55 years old and they want to figure out how to be stepping away from the business while having the business grow. Maybe you were somebody who was a genius manager who was able to step away while honoring the team, but still be able to support your business that you were working for grow. You could become a phenomenal coach for the CEO founder. Which reminds me of this book, I think it's called The $1 Trillion Coach, where they talk about a coach that was a football coach, a school league football coach that eventually became the coach to the likes of Steve Jobs and Eric Schmidt and Mark Zuckerberg and all these Silicon Valley companies, which are now $1 trillion companies. And this guy, Bill, used to be their coach. And he didn't build a $1 trillion company. What gives him a right? What gives him the right to become a coach to all these people? Well, because he understood people. He understood how to navigate people. He understood how to navigate teams. And so he was able to coach them, irrespective if he never figured out how to make a $1 trillion company. And the last belief that I commonly hear is, what will people think? What will people think if I say I'm a coach today? What will people assume when I say I'm a coach today? Well, firstly, know that nobody's thinking about you. They're thinking about themselves, and in their context, they might be thinking about you, which effectively means that they're comparing themselves to you. So if they have a problem with you creating something that is powerful and important to you, know that it's not because they're jealous of you. It is much more likely that they are jealous of you actually pursuing something that they couldn't. They are not necessarily trying to pull you down. They are mostly jealous that you actually are doing something that is important to you. And because of that, they might say, oh, it's not going to work out for you. Oh, this is not right. You can't be a coach. You're too young. You're too old. Blah, blah, blah. And that's not because they are trying to pull you down. They just don't want you to get successful, because then they would be questioning their own dreams that they didn't pursue. And that's exactly why you need to stop thinking about what will people think. Because when you start operating from, I will show the world that it is possible in my own context, what I'm doing is I'm giving them permission that they can chase their dreams too. And it's hard to chase your dream because you have to do things that are uncomfortable. You have to move further than what you've ever moved before. You have to do things you have never done before. And we don't like doing that. Our brain doesn't like doing that. But if you do end up doing what you promised you're going to do, and they see you winning, this might be their chance of also starting to pursue what they always wanted to pursue. Now, once you've identified what your beliefs are, the second thing that you might want to notice if you want to be a certified life coach or life coach in 2025 is to ask yourself, are your beliefs helping you? We all have these beliefs that we've created to protect ourselves, right? They defend ourselves from the world. They keep the peace. They keep us the same. They make us live the same life again and again with absolute certainty. And that's why these beliefs are helpful, but also hurtful, because a lot of the times being the same or doing the same thing is in contradiction with what we can be or what we can chase. And because of that, we end up not doing things that we actually want to do. We stop pursuing things that we actually want to pursue. So the question to really ask is, are these beliefs actually helping me? And if these beliefs are not actually helping me, how can I challenge these existing beliefs so I can actually believe something that's helpful? Now, when you will start to challenge these beliefs, when you will try to get over them and create something different, here are the most common, let's call them the dark horsemen that might show up in your life to kind of get you back into the rhythm. The first is called conformity. And that's our desire and our need to conform. We want to be conformed. We want to be unified. We want to be with the flock because being with the flock is safe. Being with the flock is something that gives us a sense of safety. And so every single time you're trying to take a step outside of your comfort zone, what you might find is going back into your comfort zone, going back into the form of conformity so you don't break anything. So you don't break the security that you have, so you don't break the reality that you live in, so nobody gets pissed and nobody gets annoyed by what you have been doing. And so conformity is the first dark horseman that you might indulge with as you are trying to create your new life. And the second one is confidence. And confidence happens because anytime when you're doing something new in life, the first thing that you will experience is a lack of confidence. Because what is confidence? Confidence is a skill that is developed as you practice or do something, right? Remember when you first drove a car, you were not confident about it. You actually went out, you tried to drive the car, you were shaking, you were shivering, you thought you were going to hit something. And maybe you did, but you kept going at it. You kept going at it with somebody who was teaching you how to drive. It could be a parent, it could be somebody, it could be a teacher, but you got some support and you said, I'm going to go out and do it. And you kept doing it and you kept doing it. And one day you found so much confidence that you said, all right, I'm going to roll out on my own. You still were shaky, you were not sure, but you rolled out on your own and you drove to the nearest place that you decided that you're going to go to. And then eventually you got so confident that now you don't even think about it. But how you learned how to drive a car is how you learn anything. The first few times, the first several times, depending on the complexity of the skill, you will feel a lack of confidence. You will feel you're about to make a mistake. You will feel that it's not going to work out, that you will have an accident, that it will be terrible, whatever happens next. But you still brace through it. And that's exactly what you need to do when this dark horseman of confidence comes in and you go, oh, I don't feel confident. Well, that's what you got to do. You got to take some steps, any steps that moves you towards the outcome that you want in your life. The third one is actually impulsiveness. And this is more prominent now than it has been ever before. So if you really notice, when you're doing something new, what happens is you go, all right, New Year's is coming, New Year's resolution, I'm going to eat healthily. And then you decide that on that day, and then you have that impulsive behavior for a couple of days. And then you say, well, that doesn't work. I'm still going to lose weight or I'm going to get healthier. So I'm going to do this other thing. And then you do it for the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. But what you're doing is you're just simply impulsively taking action because you feel frustrated when you're not getting the result fast enough. And so you take impulsive chances on things, often also leading to distraction. That you're constantly going at one thing, then another thing, then another thing, then another thing. And that doesn't really help you. That doesn't really help you in creating something that you really want to create in life. Because you're aiming at change, because you're trying to change, you'll impulsively act again and again without sustaining it over time. And if you don't sustain it over time, the change doesn't happen. You just think, I'll throw more tricks at this pony and hopefully this pony will finally get the drift. It doesn't. Change is about consistent effort over an extended period of time that really creates the results that you want to create in your life and finally become the new person that you want to become in your life. And then lastly, and I think a lot of us struggle with this, is actually getting started. A lot of us just don't get started. We just don't begin. We say, okay, I want change and I'll start it tomorrow. Or I want to have this different life, but I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I want to be a life coach, but I will first do something else and then I will do it. And that getting started is often where change kind of stops happening. Because how many times has it happened that you wanted to have a career in something, especially in life coaching, and you wanted to start and you wanted to start and you wanted to start and you never started, right? And it's a challenge with getting started. Getting started is hard because it often brings in all of the other things in play on the single point, right? Your impulsiveness kicks in, your confidence issue kicks in, your need to conform kicks in at the same moment, because the moment you start, you have decided that this is going to be something else, that is going to be something different. So just getting started often becomes the challenge itself. So I'm going to give you a few questions that will help you switch from these dark horsemen to something that's maybe more helpful and moves you further in your life. The first is, does whatever I am doing help me get to my goal? So the only question to really, really focus on everything, anytime somebody tells you to do something, the question to ask is, does it help me get my goal? If the answer is no, don't do it. It's really that simple. So if today you are doing your thing that is actually helping you get your goal, let's say somebody comes in, let's call it me, who says, hey, listen, the way to really do it is, say, do more social media. But let's say you are like, no, I'm just learning how to be a life coach, right? Ask yourself, what do you want to be? Do you want to be a social media superstar? Or do you want to be a life coach? If the answer is life coach, then keep going forward. Say no to this, right? So always ask yourself every day, with every opportunity, every nuance, everybody that tells you to do something else than what you're doing, ask yourself, does this help me get my goal? If the answer is no, don't do it. Does this move me closer to my goal? If the answer is no, don't do it. There will be a million opportunities that will be presented to you, especially when you're winning. That's the beauty of winning, right? The more you move towards your goal, the closer you get to your goal, the more further you've gone along in your journey, more distractions will come. And that is exactly the moment where this learned habit of saying, does this help me move to my goal? The answer is no, I'm not doing it. And then you keep moving forward. So that's the number one question I want you to ask every single time you are thinking or getting into some kind of impulsiveness, if you're getting into some kind of conformity, if you're getting into some kind of getting started issues, is just ask yourself, does this help me get to my goal? If the answer is no, I don't want to do it. If the answer is yes, let's go hard on this. The second question I want you to ask is, what am I focusing on? See, most of the time when you're pursuing something difficult, you focus on what we call the gap that you have from where you are to where you want to be, right? So for example, if you're pursuing a goal, I'm going to use the same paper. You're pursuing a goal, and this is, let's say, the goal that you have. When you're pursuing this, what tends to happen is, more often than not, you look at how far you have to still go, or how far is this gap between now and then. And so because of this, you end up thinking that, oh crap, I'm getting nowhere. This is no success. There's no way I can get to the place that I want to get to. And that creates a huge sense of anxiety, fear, unworthiness, confidence issues for you in this moment, because you're focusing on why I'm not there, how I'm not there, right? So this whole situation is not helping you, right? So focusing on how far I am from the goal doesn't actually help you. Instead of that, if you focus on how far have I come, right? Because there was an old version of you that didn't take any action, right? If you focus on how far I've come, it is more likely that it fills you with confidence, it fills you with certainty, you have more belief in yourself, you find yourself more worthy, and so you pursue and you keep taking action, right? So you ask yourself, what am I focusing on? Am I focusing on what I don't have, or what am I focusing on what I do have? Because if you focus on what you do have, how you are great, how you being grateful about it, allows you to find more momentum, more power with yourself, so you can keep pursuing the direction that you want to pursue. Which also brings me to the next question to really ask yourself, which is, what can you do with what you have? It's a very simple question that really brings our attention to this moment. Because at any given moment, like right now, you may notice, okay, if I focus on what I have, I can actually do something with it. If I focus on, oh, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I don't have the resources, I don't have the skills, all it is doing is making you feel bad about yourself. It's not actually helping you move any further. But if you ask yourself, hey, what can I do with what I have? Like, let's see, I have lots of experience in life. I have a desire to learn. I have a small amount of money that I can invest in my learning and training. I have some people that I might be able to outreach and see if I could connect with them, and maybe they're potential clients. What is it that you have, and what can you do with it? One of the things that I recommend anybody that has a little bit of investment put towards building a career as a life coach is to do a certification. Because very often, the reason why we don't start the journey of life coaching or we don't become a life coach is because we don't have a framework. And so we feel we are not competent to help anyone. Versus if you learn tools like the ones that I'm showing you and the tools that we, of course, teach in our certified life coach program here at Mindvalley, you learn all the tools. And so your confidence goes up dramatically because you know what you're using actually works. And it has actually driven results for people. So that would be one thing to consider as you're pursuing your career as a life coach. Which brings me to the fourth question, which is, what can I do for 2 minutes today that moves me towards my goal? The reason why this question is so critical and why we invite you to ask this question is because 2 minutes. 2 minutes are easy to commit. 2 minutes are easy to get started into something. But the moment you give anything 2 minutes, there are invisible forces that start to line up to force you or to move you further than 2 minutes. So say, for example, you were trying to write an email or you were trying to write a proposal, right? You say, okay, can I write a proposal for 2 minutes? Because here's what will happen in the 2 minutes. In 2 minutes, you'll probably figure out an outline and maybe you'll start writing. And because you started writing, what will happen is there's an invisible force that wants us to complete things. It will start to kick in. It'll say, oh, you started something. We need to finish it. We need to kind of round it out. So it'll force you or push you towards the direction of keep going. Then your brain is going to kick in. Your brain's going to be like, I already have the next idea. I have the next line that you need to write. I have the next paragraph that you need. I have the next structural point that you need. So your brain is saying, let's finish it, right? And then lastly, you actually want your own heart goes, well, I am already in it. What's the point of quitting it halfway? So your heart kicks in. And now that also wants you to finish it. So you have invisible forces that now try to get you to finish this work. So it's almost like you're gaming your own mind by saying, let's just do it for 2 minutes, right? Because in 2 minutes, I'll make some progress, and some progress will usually lead me to complete this whole project. And that's what we want. We want us to finish the whole project. But let's start with a very simple question. Just to say, can I do this for just 2 minutes? And just 2 minutes will give us enough momentum, hopefully, that we can finish the whole thing. Which brings me to the third thing that you need to know as a life coach if you want to be successful in 2025. And that is, we all have a tendency to live in a hell, mental hell, or what is called maybe. Maybe I will do it. Maybe I'll look at it tomorrow. Maybe this will work out. Maybe this will not work out. Maybe I'll look at one more program. Maybe I will, right? Maybe I'll approach a client. And maybe is hell, because maybe is where regret lives. This is where most of the things that you want to do, you never do, because maybe is just a way for our mind and our soul to defer and delay things that are actually important to us. So the invitation is to not live in maybe. It's to actually decide. And it is perfectly okay to decide whatever. You can decide a yes, or you can decide a no. Never live in maybe. Maybe is one of the worst places to live at because it takes energy from you. It gives you long-term regret. It is something that you are always tiptoeing between these two yeses and nos. And so it is exhausting for you and people around you because they don't know what you actually want when you're living in maybe. So ask yourself, how can you move away from maybe and go to a yes or a no? And here's a tool that would help. Whatever you're about to decide right now, whatever is the decision that you're making right now, something that's important to you, right now, say, I'm going to decide about this. So let's say, for example, you go, I want to be a life coach. I'm going to decide this today as I'm watching this video or right after this video. What you will do is you will say, if there is a yes, means there are pros to something, right? It's actually a good thing is why I'm doing it. If it's a no, there must be cons to this, right? Make a list of what are the different pros that are there and what are the different cons that are there for you becoming a life coach. Does it give you more flexibility in career, which a life coach has? You might say, I have no financial ceiling that way. I get to impact people. I'll feel good as I impact people. I'll be able to serve myself. I love personal development. I'll be able to invest more time in personal development because that's what life coaches do. I'll be able to feel seen and heard for doing something meaningful for this planet. We are suffering on this planet. There's more and more people in mental health issues than there has ever been. That is all. That is something that I like to help. These are all the pros. The cons might be I have to make a small investment and I'll have to figure that piece out. I have to give some time and energy to be able to learn these systems. I'm going to need to learn a framework, and I got to practice that framework before I can go out and impact people. There might be a con of, well, I have to get uncomfortable. I have to do something that seems like right now might be difficult for me to do, and so on and so forth. So you write down your cons, you write down your pros, and because you have a pro and con list, it's much easier for you now to decide if you want to do something or not. And I say do it on a physical piece of paper. And the reason why you want to do it on a physical piece of paper, because when you take mental notes, you will find that you forget the previous note and you don't have a count on them. There's no visual memory of it. But you write it down on either of the sides, you might find whatever is the reason for you to decide yes or no would be as clear as day. And so I invite you to today decide to not have a maybe in your life for anything really. Either go for a yes or a no, and be very clear why I am doing it as a yes or a no by identifying the pros and cons for either of the decisions to be made. Now that you've decided, it comes to the next step, and the next step is commitment. And what happens right after you have decided yes or no is commitment kicks in, right? Because you've said, okay, yes, let's assume you've said yes. I'm going to do yes. I'm going to be a life coach in 2025. I'm committing to this, and I'm going to do everything I have to do in my power to be able to do this. Here's what will happen. Your commitment suddenly is going to become the reason why you will start to have a little panic attack, because you would go, oh crap, I've said yes to this, but now all my safety is gone because I'm about to do something that's new and uncomfortable. I have to do the unfamiliar. I have to learn a program. I have to study it. I have to practice it. I have to engage with other people, things I have not done recently or in a long time. And so this panic is going to create a mental model or mental reality for you where you would go, I don't know if I can do this, can't do this, right? And now what will happen is your brain's going to find all the reasons of why this is not going to work out. And so you create the cycle of anxiety and the cycle of unworthiness that you create because you've committed to something that is unfamiliar. You've committed to something that's hard. That is, you've committed to something that you feel that will change you fundamentally. So all that panic, all those stories are starting to pile up in your brain. Now, a worst case scenario is that you have friends or family members that also don't believe in you, and they start telling you that's a bad decision to make. You shouldn't make that decision. It's a bad decision to make. You are not good enough to be a life coach. You're too young. You're too old. You're too not smart, or whatever the story that your family and friends are going to tell you to keep you into what we call the zone of familiar, the zone of safety. And because they don't want you to change, it's uncomfortable for them when you change the person too. So it's uncomfortable for yourself. It's uncomfortable for them. So every force that is around you that wants to stay the same is going to come together to try to keep you the same. And this is why you need almost a different force for you to keep moving forward. What research has found is about 65% of us need this external force. This is external accountability. External accountability is where you ask somebody else to hold you accountable to something, or you tell somebody that you will do something, and now because they know that you're doing it, you're externally accountable, and it's much more likely that you will pursue and actually do what you said you're going to do versus if you just held yourself accountable. Now, it's not true for everyone. Of course, there's 35% of the world that are very good at internal accountability, but 65% of us actually respond to external accountability. So I invite you to consider that you might be this person. Because if all these forces get you back into the same zone and you stop pursuing life coaching as a career, we just did all this work for nothing, right? We finally got to a place where we could make a decision. Now we have a commitment. Now this commitment is freaking you out. Get some accountability. Now, to get this accountability, there's one of three ways that you can have. First, you can hire a coach yourself, right? You can say, I'm going to hire a coach. That will be my accountability coach. They will actually help me pursue this further. Second is you can get certified or buy a certification or enroll in a certification. This is something that you can do right away because we are enrolling for it right now. The link is below on this video. You can totally check it out. We are the highest rated certification in life coaching in the world right now. We have almost 1,000+ testimonials for certified life coach very specifically, and students rave about this program. So you will absolutely love it. So that's the second thing that you can do. And third thing is if you have a friend that is willing to hold you accountable, ask a friend. Like, that's probably the easiest of them all, but it's the hardest of them all, because often it's hard to find a friend that does this job well enough that you actually stick to the process. Plus, you can tell your friend to F off, which you can do to a coach. So my invitation is, firstly, sign up for a certification, because that's the easiest thing that you can do that will actually work. Second is you can hire a coach. And the third would be to ask a friend. So choose one of these, whatever feels right for you to be able to stay with your commitment. Because otherwise, as it has happened in the past, and you might notice this, I don't know you personally, but I've noticed it enough, I've coached enough people to know this, is that we say yes, we commit to it, but we don't follow through on this commitment. And that's where the real problem lies. That's where the change doesn't happen, is because commitment, even with our good heart and beautiful brains, we sometimes fail to follow through. And that's because 65% of us need somebody external to hold us accountable, for us to be able to take actions that even are in our own self-interest. So now that you've made a commitment, here is what might happen. This is what happens with a lot of us. There's a particular thing that shows up in our life after commitment, and that is called inaction. And inaction is one of those things where we think, oh, nothing bad happens if I don't do anything, right? Because I am where I am, and I'll continue to be where I am, right? And so inaction has no cost. And that's what we would think, and one would believe that to be true, because there is no immediate cost to inaction. You stay where you are. Here is where you are, and you have a particular energy around you right now, okay? That's you in action or inaction today, right? Nothing changes. But here is what happens when you stay in inaction for a long time, or you take no action today, is what you're discounting in this experience is there is a hard calling that you have, that you right now are saying, I want to be a life coach. That's your soul's calling. You want to do something more meaningful. Now you stop listening to this heart for a long enough time, and soon enough what you will find is that your overall energy starts to deplete. Have you ever met those people who are later in life, like in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, or 70s, tend to feel not as alive as they used to be before? They don't have the same passion. They don't have the same drive. It's not necessarily age. It's actually often that they continued to take no action towards what their heart wanted them to do. And because they never heard their soul, they never took action towards it, they never followed what they were passionate about, what they had meaning towards, what they thought was important in life, it eventually took on the energy, or took on its own energy, and started to deplete them. Because over time, inaction leads to regret. And regret is corrosive. Regret is something that slowly eats at your energy. You can't really see it, but you can feel it in time, because it changes you, because it starts to lose trust in yourself. You start to feel that you can't do what you really wanted to do in your life. You can't feel the joy in life. And when this starts to happen, you may notice that it transports over to people you love. It could be your children, it could be your parents, it could be your kids, it could be your partner, it could be people that you interact with, it could be your friends. It takes away yourself, because you become a person, because you have so much regret, because you never took action, is that you become this person that is just annoyed at themselves. They are just pissed at themselves. And you might have met such people. You might have become that person as you watch this video. But it's not age. It's inaction. It's the cost of inaction that is only seen over time. It doesn't hit you immediately, because nothing changes in this moment. But eventually, as you keep taking no action towards what's your calling, it gets to you. And one day you wake up feeling so empty and so dissatisfied with your life that then you go, well, how did I get there? How did I get here? And if that is you today, or you feel like that could be you in time, I invite you to consider taking that chance so you can stay in action, so that you don't fail your commitment to yourself, so you don't fail your commitment to your family, and you continue to pursue what your soul calls you to do. Remember the parents or uncles and aunties that always said they're going to do something, but never did, how they turned out to as they got older, right? How their light got dimmer and dimmer every time you met them, because they finally felt the effects of inaction. So I hope and I wish for you that you not only make the commitment today, but you actually take action. Because if you do, you will see that you will be lit up all over again, and you will finally pursue what you're really passionate about and what you find true purpose in. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you around.